Hello and welcome to Algorithm Integrity Matters. Insights for financial services leaders who want to enhance fairness and accuracy in their use of data, algorithms, and AI. I'm your host, Yusuf Mullah. This article was published in September 2024 and it's titled Equal versus Equitable, Algorithmic Fairness. So the background to this article is that in a previous episode article, we spoke about fairness in algorithmic systems as one of the key aspects in an algorithm audit. And so this just goes a bit deeper in terms of what that means and also what the distinction between equal and equitable is. So here we go. Fairness in algorithmic systems is a multifaceted and developing topic. As technology advances and algorithms increasingly influence decisions, the need for fair treatment is becoming increasingly important. However, there is currently no definitive guidance or universally accepted framework for achieving algorithmic fairness. Researchers, ethicists, and industry professionals are actively exploring this, grappling with the challenges of balancing technical efficacy and business realities with ethical and moral considerations. This article aims to shed light on the distinctions between equal and equitable treatment in algorithmic systems, while acknowledging that our understanding of fairness is still developing and subject to ongoing debate. Equal versus equitable. In a previous article, we explored 10 key aspects to consider when scoping an algorithm integrity audit. And you can refer to episode 4 for that. One aspect was fairness, with this in the description. The design ensures equitable treatment. So that's a part of that description. The design ensures equitable treatment. This raises an important question. Shouldn't we aim for equal rather than equitable treatment? To answer this, first, let's distinguish between fairness and algorithmic fairness. When we're conducting an algorithm integrity audit, we examine multiple aspects, including algorithmic fairness and ethics. These are distinct but related concepts. Algorithmic fairness focuses on whether the algorithm itself is designed to ensure equitable treatment within its defined parameters. Ethics, on the other hand, considers the broader implications of the algorithm's use, including the morality of the task it's assisting with. So that's fairness overall. While interconnected, we often evaluate these aspects separately to ensure thorough analysis. Algorithmic fairness looks at how the algorithm processes inputs and produces outputs without bias. The ethical evaluation considers whether the algorithm's purpose and overall impact align with moral and societal values. A fair algorithm should not discriminate or produce biased results against any specific group based on protected attributes, but it will still consider relevant circumstances. So let's talk about those. Relevant circumstances and protected attributes. A range of relevant circumstances feed into the design of the algorithm. This is what the algorithm is designed to use in making an eligibility decision or producing a calculated result. We'll use the term features, commonly used to describe input variables. You may know or hear about feature engineering, and this is simply the process of selecting, transforming, and creating relevant features for a machine learning model. This is a crucial step in developing effective algorithms. A relevant circumstance is depicted as one or more features within the algorithm. Examples of features that are typically used include, in the insurance domain, number of claim-free years or number of other policies held. In the lending area, it could be income or employment status as examples. Now, without these, there would be no need for the algorithm. Everyone just gets the same result. So we need these differentiators for the algorithm to exist in the first place. However, some of these may be challenging. So consider this set of examples. Within premiums, age as a feature, vehicle type. Within claims, age and postcode. Within lending, income, credit score, and employment status. Within anti-money laundering, AML, individual names. Within CTF, counterterrorism financing. Source and destination of funds, links to high-risk jurisdictions. FATCA, so the Foreign Assets Tax Compliance Act. US indicia, so US place of birth or US address or US phone number. Let's delve into a little bit of background before we detail what the issues with these are. It's important to note that protected attributes and proxies for protected attributes may be included as relevant circumstances depending on the context. For instance, in insurance, age is sometimes considered a relevant factor for risk assessment, but using it must be carefully justified and documented. There needs to be a clear, justifiable reason with safeguards in place to prevent unfair bias. There is authoritative guidance for insurance companies in Australia from the Australian Human Rights Commission in partnership with the Actuaries Institute. So that's the Institute of Actuaries in Australia. And we'll put a link to that guidance in the show notes. The ethical implications of using relevant circumstances would be evaluated separately as part of a broader ethical framework. Let's revisit the examples from earlier. So within premiums, age is a protected attribute. Vehicle type can be a proxy, for example, for disability status. If you have a vehicle that is adjusted for people with a physical disability and you're using vehicle type in your model, is that then a proxy for that? Within claims, age is a protected attribute. Postcode could be a proxy, for example, for race, gender, disability. Within lending, credit scores are sometimes considered proxies for race, gender, age, and disability status. Within AML, names can be a proxy for race, and these could skew the algorithm outputs depending on the nature of the machine learning model, for example. Within CTF, you have issues of nationality, ethnicity versus source or destination and jurisdiction, and whether that creates any issues. And then finally, within FATCA, as an example, you have US indicia that are relevant for compliance, but nationality could be a proxy for race if you're using nationality more broadly as opposed to honing in on just US. So the question is, should they be used at all? Now, there's an argument for and there is one against, but that's part of the ethical debate. Once that is settled, the decision flows to the algorithm design, and that's the point. The ethical debate comes first, the algorithmic design follows, which is why algorithmic fairness is a little bit separate. Intertwined but separate. So let's go back to our question around equal versus equitable. So given what we said, if all inputs are treated equally, the algorithm really becomes ineffective. Applying the same rules to everyone, regardless of their circumstances, would yield identical results, which is counterproductive. Equitable treatment involves considering relevant circumstances, but importantly, without factoring in protected attributes. Unless a specific exemption applies, the algorithm should avoid using protected attributes such as race as direct inputs, using proxies like postcodes or zip codes for protected attributes, and perpetuating historical biases that are present in past data. A real-world implementation. So, in practice, implementing fair algorithms requires several activities. For instance, a bank implementing a loan approval system might do the following: compile a diverse team, including ethicists, data scientists, domain experts, and others. Evaluate ethical considerations in selecting eligibility criteria and scoring features. Deploy a bias-aware, that is trained, team to develop the algorithm. Make sure the algorithm does not include features without ethical clearance. Implement explainable techniques to understand how decisions are made. conduct an impact assessment, regularly review the system's decisions for bias, provide human oversight for borderline cases, and commission regular independent reviews. Let's talk a little bit about bias awareness. So we spoke earlier about feature engineering, and the goal of feature engineering is to improve the model's performance by providing it with the most informative and relevant inputs. However, in the context of algorithmic fairness, feature engineering must be done carefully to avoid introducing or amplifying biases. So, the algorithm developers, supported by the broader diverse team, need to consider a range of factors. Relevance. Does the feature genuinely contribute to the result? Fairness. Could the feature lead to unfair discrimination against protected groups? Proxy variables. Might seemingly neutral features act as proxies for protected attributes? And historical biases. Historical inequalities that shouldn't be perpetuated. To do this effectively, algorithm developers need to be trained to identify bias. So let's move to wrap this up. Firstly, concepts matter. While some may argue that terminology, so for example, equal versus equitable, is insignificant, it is, however, essential to recognize that the underlying concepts matter. Regardless of the terms used, we need to acknowledge that we need to both, 1, consider relevant circumstances, and 2, avoid protected attributes. There's no algorithm without the former, that is relevant circumstances. There's no fairness without the latter, that is avoiding protected attributes. While we separate fairness and ethics for clarity, in practice they're often intertwined. Ethical considerations inform what we deem fair, and fairness implementations have ethical implications. For example, deciding whether to use credit scores for insurance is both an ethical and a fairness issue. Separating them helps with analysis, but we also consider how they interact in practice. Continuous improvement. Algorithmic fairness is an ongoing process, not a one-time achievement. There is no perfect answer. We face tensions and trade-offs, which means that our decisions will vary. If anyone claims they have absolute answers, approach that claim with significant skepticism. As our understanding of fairness evolves, we must continually refine our approaches. Our goal is to make sure, to the best of our ability, that our algorithms operate fairly and ethically, and that we continuously strive to make them better. A disclaimer: the information in this article does not constitute legal advice. It may not be relevant to your circumstances. It may not be appropriate for certain high-risk use cases, and it was written for consideration in certain algorithmic contexts within banks and insurance companies, may not apply to other contexts, and may not be relevant to other types of organizations. Algorithmic fairness frameworks are not without challenges. They may not capture all forms of bias, especially those deeply embedded in historical data or societal structures. Different fairness metrics can sometimes conflict, making it impossible to satisfy all fairness criteria simultaneously. Ongoing research and vigilance are important. That's the article. Thanks for listening.